So for the last few days, there's been a lot of news surrounding Kadokawa potentially being bought out by Sony. I've made a video on it, many other content creators have made a video on it, big streamers have made a video on it, and one of the big main focuses that people are talking about is that if Kadokawa is bought out by Sony, Sony will effectively own FromSoft, aka the creators of Dark Souls and Elden Ring. But obviously, there's so much more to Kadokawa than their gaming division, which I talked about in my video I made a few days ago. But I don't want to retread old points. The point is that there's been a little bit of new information that has come to light in the last few days, or even in the last 20 or so hours, about maybe Kadokawa spread the information about them being bought out to potentially save themselves from a hostile takeover. Now, this is an article that I was linked to earlier this morning. I took a brief look at it, I read it, and I was like, if this is legitimately true, and this is exactly what did in fact happen, then Kadokawa's stance of why they're trying to potentially let this become public knowledge, but also allowing Sony to potentially acquire them, makes a lot more sense if you consider everything on the table. So let's get into reading this article first before I dive into anything else with this video. Rumor: From Software owner Kadokawa may have approached Sony themselves to block a hostile takeover from Kadokawa. Now, if you don't know who this company is and why they potentially approached Sony, Kadokawa is a Korean company that owns a considerable chunk of, let's say, just different companies, and one big one in particular, they own Webtoon itself. I mean, looking at one branch, for instance, the Kadokawa Entertainment branch, you can just take a brief look and see what they own, and one big one is like, Tapas Media. They obviously, like I said, they own Webtoon itself. They own a few big branches of, like, talent companies and stuff. They own K-pop to an extent. They are a very, very large South Korean company, and once again, this is just looking at one branch of Kadokawa, then just their entertainment branch. This doesn't even cover, like, their gaming division, their talk division, the style pay, all that, banks, they even own some banks. They're a pretty big company, so that's why they approached Sony, because they rather have, like, Sony, which they have a better relationship with, than someone like Kadokawa, which is from a foreign country. So it kind of all lines up. Now, once again, I do want to make sure I state this, that this is indeed a rumor. Now, there is potential possibility that this could turn out to be inaccurate, but there is potential possibility it could be a thing, okay? So I do want to make sure I state that. So anyways, let's read the article. As we reported yesterday, Kadokawa officially confirmed that Sony made them an offer, but they have yet to make a decision. Now, Sony themselves, or Kadokawa themselves, has actually directly stated that yes, they legitimately have been offered to be acquired by Sony. There's even an official statement by them, so yes, this is 100% confirmed. This is not a rumor by any means. We at the very least know that Kadokawa and Sony are in talks. But anyways, back to the article. So, as shared on the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit by user 4000KD, theorizes that this may have something to do with another current Kadokawa shareholder, Kadokawa. Kadokawa and Sony are all giant conglomerates with their hands deep in different businesses. Unlike Kadokawa and Sony, Kadokawa is from South Korea, and their core business is Kadokawa Talks, a messaging app that is #1 in revenue for both iOS and Android in their home country. Kadokawa's scope of businesses include online banking, transportation, e-commerce, and of course, entertainment. And Kadokawa Entertainment makes movies and shows, and yes, they produce K-pop. They also own the original Webtoon online comic book platform. That's huge. Kadokawa does not have a good reputation in spite of its financial success. We're talking about a company whose founder was embroiled in a gambling scandal from when it was launched. Here's like the link to it and all that, if it'll load here. Yeah, here we go. So yeah, here's the article, getting into a gambling scandal back in 2015. But anyways, this year, Kadokawa is embroiled in a stock market manipulation scandal over the successful hostile takeover of K-pop and entertainment company SM Entertainment. So they have already done somewhat of a hostile takeover of the K-pop industry. So 4,000 KD speculation is very much grounded, because obviously there is evidence that Kadokawa would do something like this. The shared evidence that Kadokawa has been slowly buying shares in their Japanese target Kadokawa since 2020. Notably, last 2021, Kadokawa already managed to bulk up to become Kadokawa's largest shareholder. Now, I do want to point something out here before we go any further with this article. Someone on Reddit did post this. They posted that, if you go to the link of the actual shareholder site for Kadokawa, they are not listed. Like, for instance, Kadokawa is not listed here in the top shareholders. You can see Sony's down here and all that with how many shares they own, but this is directly from Kadokawa's actual main site and their general stock information. Now, I don't know necessarily how accurate this is. Maybe I'm not reading this right. Maybe this is not, completely accurate. Maybe it's not updated properly. But at the very least, at this current time, it doesn't look like Kadokawa is the #1 shareholder of Kadokawa. It is actually the Master Trust Bank of Japan. So I do want to point that out before I read any further. But once again, maybe the site hasn't been updated, and maybe Kadokawa really is one of the biggest shareholders within the company. Anyways, 4,000 KD summarizes their point by quoting Shinobi602 on his commentary/opinion on the whole situation. Typically, the two parties agreed to a share price for a deal. Sony's not going to end up paying whatever Kadokawa's valuation rises to. What I meant was, now if Kadokawa wanted to do a takeover, they'd have to cough up even more cash, so leaking it intentionally could make sense. If you feel like you've been reading one too many stories about hostile takeovers in video games, you aren't imagining things. We've been reporting on a different situation with Ubisoft, but one that could lead to a Guillemot family being bought out by Tencent. I know I butchered that, please forgive me. I accidentally clicked on something. But here we will share our insight in this Sony Kadokawa situation, and something that you may not have wanted to read. Japan recently passed a new law that enable and no longer blocks hostile takeovers of Japanese companies. Let's take a look here and how long ago this was. This happened back literally a few months back. You can literally see this. I'm not clicking accept. You're not taking my cookies or whatever. But on the 20th of August, this post was made. So basically, only relatively recently did Japan pass a law to allow companies to potentially buy out Japanese companies, foreign companies to buy out Japanese companies. You can see the worry here, the speculation. I don't know exactly why Japan did this, but because I'm not really completely affiliated or understand complete Japanese law, I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to act like I do, but apparently thanks to a law that passed, apparently foreign countries can now buy out, Japanese companies, which definitely could lead to a lot of danger. Anyways, the law lays out guidelines for their satisfaction, but because of these new rules, Japanese companies like, for instance, 7-Eleven owner 7 & I Holdings are now vulnerable to being taken over by foreign owners. Yes, that means beloved Japanese game companies like Nintendo, Sega, and Square Enix are now all vulnerable to hostile takeovers too, if someone had enough hubris and money to try. So it makes sense that Kadokawa would be desperate enough to pitch a monopoly with Sony to avoid a hostile takeover. Based on what Shinobi said, it's possible that Kadokawa doesn't really want to push through with a Sony deal. Their move to disclose may be part of the company's secession, like chess moves, to hopefully get out of this with their independence, and investments from both Sony and Kadokawa intact. So if it sounds like a Game of the Year maker FromSoft is being bounced around like a tennis ball in all this news, that might actually be the case. As terrifying as the prospects of a Sony Entertainment monopoly is, gamers and fans should also be wary of a company as shady as Kadokawa taking over Kadokawa as well. So, very long article, but let's summarize this, okay? So, the big takeaway from this article is that, once again, it is a rumor, okay? So, this is a rumor. However, there is substantial evidence to back up the possibility that this is a fear that Kadokawa has. Even if, theoretically, Kadokawa has not approached Kadokawa to buy them, the fear is still there, to where it could hypothetically happen. And so Kadokawa wants to get in front of, the horse before they get ran, over by something else, and they want to try to stop it. They want to stop it before it gets too bad. So maybe the reason why either they're wanting to do this deal with Sony is to stop something like Kadokawa buying them out, or at the very least another foreign company that potentially could be disastrous for their very brand. Now, this doesn't get into my personal opinion on how I feel about Sony acquiring Kadokawa. I've already talked about that in a separate video. But the point still stands. This gives a lot more context to why this is potentially happening, if this is indeed accurate. Now, regardless if this is accurate or not, I do find it very fascinating that Japan recently passed a law to make Japanese companies vulnerable to being taken over, by foreign companies. I think that's interesting. I don't know what led to that. I don't know why that was done. I'm very, very curious on that one personally, but I don't know too much about the law to really have a full opinion on that situation. But if that is indeed the case, and the law does allow, Japanese companies to be bought, that, like I said, is dangerous. I can see why, Kadokawa is concerned about the entire ordeal. So, with that being said, one thing that does need to be taken away from this whole situation is that no matter what direction of the pendulum we fall on, it's bad news. Because even if we want to theoretically give credibility to this rumor and say Kadokawa wants to buy them, that's going to be disastrous and dangerous in of itself. Because if Kadokawa is as shady, and I've heard rumors and stories about them over the years, if they are really as shady as, they are led to believe, then it would be just as bad or maybe even worse than even Sony taking them over. I don't want either of them to buy it, but if I had to look at the situation, it makes the whole Sony Kadokawa deal make a lot more sense if Kadokawa is trying to buy them. Once again, at the end of the day, this is a rumor. But even then, even if we want to give this rumor credibility, it's a lose-lose situation. The fans will lose, the consumer will lose, but the companies will win. There is no winning this. Even if the rumor turns out to just be a rumor, Kadokawa being bought by Sony will not be good in any way. It will be bad. I mean, I've already talked about this in my previous video of just what Kadokawa owns. The amount of content and stuff they own in Japan is just unfathomable. It is insane what they own. Like, I don't think the common anime manga reader, watcher, or light novel reader truly understands how much they own. I mean, it is staggering just how big Kadokawa is in the anime, manga, and light novel industry. And if they were bought by Sony, it would be a monopoly. And one thing I didn't talk too much about in my last video on this subject is that they won't be broken up as a monopoly. And I think one of the reasons why people, need to know this is that Kadokawa is a Japanese company, which obviously I kind of talked about in this video. And obviously laws of monopolies is an American law. So it has nothing to do with Japanese companies. Obviously Japan might be able to step in or something, but judging by the article saying that a law was changed to allow foreign companies to buy Japanese companies, that's potentially not going to happen. So the main issue here to take away from all of this is that Sony would have an uncontested monopoly. They would own light novels, bunch of manga, a bunch of anime studios. They would own massive gaming divisions. They would own RPG Maker, which is staggering in of itself. Just ownership of RPG Maker, the amount of fan games and stuff that's made. And then that's not even including, like, the distribution that they already have, like Sony has. For instance, like, with Crunchyroll, Funimation, Right Stuff, and Aniplex. So they would straight up have, like, they wouldn't have 100% of the anime manga industry and stuff, but they would pretty much have 80%, I would say, of the industry. They would just be uncontested. They could literally stranglehold anyone out of the industry to gain control, because that's just how much they own. I mean, once again, the light novel division in of itself is just insane that Kadokawa owns. It's already spooky in of itself. I mean, as I said in my last video on this subject, I mean, they own ReZero, Mushoku Tensei, they own Konosuba, Overlord, Tanya the Evil, Snafu, I believe. They own a lot, and obviously they own Yen Press as well, which is the people that are directly responsible for releasing light novels in different countries. So, yeah, it just, not good, not good. So, I'll leave it at that. Just wanted to talk about this. It's not necessarily good news, but, it gives a little bit more clarity to the situation if this rumor does turn out to be true. Hopefully, Kadokawa's playing 4D chess. They don't want to be bought out. They want to keep their independence, and they're just doing this to try to, generate money. Who really knows? But we shall see in the upcoming weeks. Even if they theoretically do get bought out by Sony, they won't officially be bought out probably until maybe next year. Like, they would go through the deal and all that, but then it would probably not really fully go underway until next year, 2025. So it's going to be a bit to really see where this is going to go. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. Be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.